I personally think that Josh Sargent should be the number 9.
My biggest concern is that Mexico does tend to make those little mistakes defensively, but it's the inconsistencies.
Isn't this inconsistent though?
He's going to be on the ground for the majority of the time. No,
I
look back at highlights. No, if you
that's the
have
Christian Pulisic treatment, though.
Same.
We're gonna have to stop this. We're gonna start arguing on this podcast, aren't we?
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Rad Football Show. I'm Lizzy, 90min's U.S. editor, here with our co-host Geno. How are you?
Good. How are you? It's been a little bit of time since we last talked. We have a full Liga MX week to talk about, that'll be fun. You were away in San Jose covering MLS Media Day, which we will, I'm sure, have content and talk about this at some point. We'll have content on the podcast. But yeah, everything's good. I mean, it's a little cold here in New York, but you know, you can rent a car now, so that's pretty cool. I think that's changed since the last time we talked.
I can. I turned 25, so I can officially rent a car without absolutely any problems or dependence, which is great. Thanks so much for that, America.
Which is like, you know, so we had a little talk when you mentioned this on your 25th birthday. About, I thought that you just had to pay extra money or something like that, and you can get a car, because I thought it was like an insurance thing or whatever. But
I also thought that it might
apparently it's not.
Yeah, it might be state by state, because I know in Florida they did not let me at all. Which, by the way, I will not complain about, because I hate driving personally. I'm a passenger princess, but I mean, at least I can do it now. It'll be
fun. You can like rent like cool cars though now. Like it's like if you're ever like, you can, you know, say you're thinking about buying a car, right? You can rent a cool car that you're thinking about buying, and then you could try it out. It's like a test run, like a real test run, not just like driving around the parking lot of the dealership.
So much fun. The freedoms and joys of being
25 in America.
Yeah, they're great. They're phenomenal. But yeah, no, so I was in San Jose, MLS Media Day. 39 player interviews back to back. So we'll have so much to unload for everyone in the coming weeks. Liga MX kicked off last week. So we have Jornada Uno in the books. Geno's first complete weekend of Liga MX action. And
it was. Yeah, I mean, you go ahead. You go ahead and you explain kind of what happened before I pretend to understand anything that happened.
No, you know lots. No, so before the weekend started, Mazatlan versus León and Atlas versus Toluca were both postponed, one for violence reasons and the other because of pitch conditions. So those have been postponed. The league has
so only one of them was not postponed because of what's happening in that area. Okay. Yeah, so that was one thing I was unsure about, because there were a few games postponed this weekend. Not just those two. I think there was one on Saturday too, right?
I think it was those two in general.
Okay. Maybe I probably am wrong.
But so yeah, those two were postponed. The league has yet to respond on when they will play up again. The violence has obviously since ceased, but it took a little bit of an impact. But there was lots of actions to go through, lots of goals, crazy halves, and to Geno's point, lots of red cards.
Lots of red cards. Can we talk about this?
You want to talk about
this? I think there's been more red cards in week 1 of Liga MX than there were in the entirety of the Premier League last year.
That's a hot take. I will not be able to do the math on that, but
I mean, I can't either, but I mean, I could right now. I have the things up here, but it felt like every single game that I watched or I checked the score of, it was just like 77th minute red card, 83rd minute red card, 91st minute red card, lots of penalties.
Yeah.
Feel like this is the chaos you were talking about.
Yes, it was.
Which I'm not sure I'm going to be able to handle, you know?
You definitely will. It takes a little bit to ease into it, but you definitely will. It's what makes
it takes a little bit to ease into just 10 players on the field for half every 3 weeks.
Yeah, why not?
This is going to be torture.
It's so exciting. Truly, and I didn't watch absolutely every single game. We just stuck to the core teams. But for me, it seems that this round of referees used red cards to establish their dominance in the game and kind of keep control in what they might have thought otherwise would have been even more chaotic. So
Which is fair. I mean, it's fair to want to control the match.
Right.
But at a point, I think you need to, that's what the yellow card's for, right? I feel like there was just like a lot of.
Sometimes it's not enough.
And we had this conversation too before when we were talking about the Copa por Mexico.
Yeah.
When we were talking about, felt like there was a lot of yellow cards given out. I remember it felt like there was a lot of yellow cards given out for dissent. And that just seems to have taken another level now in the Clausura.
No, it's red.
Where it's just red cards.
Happy 2023.
Maybe Liga MX should institute a new rule that has an orange card, which is like a sin bin type thing. You know, you go off the field for like 2 minutes.
Like
it seems it seems like they need something new to avoid just having full halves of one team having more players than the other.
We love a timeout. But starting with Club America, it was a difficult start to the tournament.
Yikes, am I right? Yikes.
Yeah.
You said this team was terrible. Not Club America, the team they're playing that I cannot pronounce.
Yeah, so it was a 0-0.
You said they're very bad, but they tied.
They are arguably the worst team in the league. They ended in last place last tournament. And despite their 26 shots overall, it was still not enough. So a 0-0 to kick off the Clausura 2023 isn't a great start, especially given what you're hearing behind the scenes with the roster movements. And obviously you had Memo depart and then failed talks. Speaking about media day, I sat down with Julian Araujo yesterday or on Tuesday, and he addressed the transfer rumors over to Club America. He confirmed that there was talks between him, his agent, and the club, but at the moment he remains focused with the Galaxy. So he didn't dive in particularly into what those contracts were that fell through. But Club America.
Go ahead.
No, Club America in the earlier weeks teased that they were going after a right back and a Mexican right back. And obviously his name was linked to the whole institution. And there, of course, were talks, but nothing concrete, and he's not making it through. So between failed conversations, failed transfers, roster movements, obviously Memo, and a disappointing end to last tournament, that 0-0 was definitely not the way to go.
Yeah, and I mean, Araujo is definitely, he's an exciting young player, right? I mean, he's a guy that I think, it would benefit a lot of teams here in North America, not just any Liga MX team, any team, in the MLS as well, and maybe, even some teams abroad, just a good right back. I guess the question I would have for you is, I mean, how well would you see him fitting in there? As someone who watches Club America consistently, is this a move that would benefit both sides, or is this a move that maybe would it be better? Would it be worse for how would this benefit, or I guess to, not benefit Julian Araujo and Club America?
He would settle into Fernando Ortiz's system in Club America. He would do well and he would excel, but I think it wouldn't be a jump, and it wouldn't be a step forward for the player. And he himself has said it before to me that he wants to go to Europe. He thinks Europe will take him to reach his highest potential. And I agree. I think you need to step out of the mold of North American soccer. I know Liga MX and MLS offer different qualities, but I do think it's within the same North American plane, while moving to Europe would add a whole different dimension to his game. And it would be more speed oriented. He would hit the gym more, and because they have said that once a Mexican player goes to Europe, he bulks up and he becomes that physically elite figure that even the Mexican national team needs. So I think potentially a Club America move in the future would be good, but I don't think MLS to Club America would be the move he needs at the moment. And that's not to say MLS is better than Liga MX or vice versa, but I think it's adjacent at the moment. It's not that step forward that he needs to make to become that distinctive player at the back for the Mexican national team, which is in his sights. Obviously, we also spoke, and the interview will be coming soon on our Twitter and YouTube, but we spoke about his needs and sights set on 2026 with the Mexican national team. And a move to Europe would get him there, and the dream is still there. But
I think the other thing too, it is a lateral move, right? I think the MLS and Liga MX are more equal than they've ever been at this point. I feel like they're both on the same level, which is something that we haven't seen in possibly ever in terms of those two leagues competing against each other. And we'll get a firsthand look at that with Leagues Cup this year. But yeah, I think a move abroad off of the continent would probably be best suited for him. And I think this is something we may have talked about or something I heard somewhere else, but it is also said that when players leave this continent and go, that's when they really learn the game of football.
Yeah,
and
especially
I think
for a defender. I think you learn, and like Andres Guardado from the Mexican national team, he's with Real Betis now. He said it before. I learned to defend. And
you learn the tactical side of football.
Yeah,
I think more.
I mean, he's a midfielder, but yeah, he's like, I learned to head back and stay back. While moving to Europe. So a lot of Mexican national team players have mentioned that their game drastically improved when moving abroad and when playing in La Liga, Bundesliga, or Eredivisie. So I think that's a necessary move. And in August, Julian Araujo was linked to Benfica and Porto. So
and like I've said before, I think, and I don't think I've said this on camera ever, but I think that the MLS and Liga MX are good spots to be kind of that middle ground for a lot of not only, US, Canadian, Mexican players, but those South American players who are, coming from South America. I think the South American game, maybe in quality, might not be as great. They have some very, very talented players who come from South America, but the leagues as a whole may not be as good as MLS or Liga MX. So you see a lot of those South American players coming from South America to play in the MLS, and they make the bounce from the MLS. It's kind of like a, little puzzle or a little bouncing spot. They go from one spot to the other, and then, they're good spots to grow as a young player in the MLS and Liga MX. But to take that next step, I think it's still undisputed that you have to go to Europe and play, no matter where you play in Europe. I think, as you mentioned, the Eredivisie is becoming more of a big league that a lot of players are finding their footing in, especially from over here. So that's another league they can go to, obviously France and, Italy and whatnot. But I think that to make a big enough jump to improve yourself, I think once you get to that age of 22, 23, if you really want to become a consistent starter, a consistent player, a player who is a well-known name, a guy who is counted on week in, week out, or camp in and camp out for international, you have to go to Europe and face that competition to do that.
Yeah. So that's his status at the moment. We will see. The transfer window is obviously still open for a bit, so we'll see if he makes that move. He did say he'll leave it up to his agent while he's focused on preseason with the Galaxy.
Yes.
Moving on to the reigning Liga MX champions, Pachuca started off extremely well. They won 5-1 over Puebla on Monday night. That was phenomenal. That championship hangover that a lot of people talk about doesn't exist for them. And we saw goals from World Cup participants Kevin Alvarez and Luis Chavez, who we know Luis Chavez was linked also to a move abroad, and there was talks with Bayern Leverkusen, but obviously a deal has not been struck by them. So right now he's still thriving in Liga MX. That was a phenomenal move.
Yes, no, I mean, like you said, Pachuca played sorry, I keep saying Pachuca every time. Pachuca played a phenomenal game. Obviously, we've seen what Luis Chavez can do in the World Cup. We know he's a very talented player. That move will come for him at one time or another. It wasn't the right time, I guess, for Bayer Leverkusen. Those talks fell through. Obviously, if you're a Mexican national team fan, having Luis Chavez play under one of the greatest midfielders to ever play the game, and Xabi Alonso, would be exactly what you would want. So it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate from a Mexican national team perspective that he didn't go there. But that's not to say that move will not happen in the future. He will take another year, and I'm sure, if he continues to on the trajectory that he's on right now, contributing to Pachuca as he has been, I'm sure that move, whether it be to Bayer Leverkusen, somewhere else in Germany, or somewhere else in Europe, will come sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think the only concerning thing with Luis Chávez in particular is his age. I mean, 26.
Yeah.
While young, I'd obviously say that when you're younger, it's young. But I think when you're looking at it from a football perspective, you're considered over the age of that traditional transfer move abroad. But
yeah, and like I said, it's at 22, 23 is when you typically see these players who are going to make that big jump. Now, that's not to say it can't be done. You know, we've seen players from America, we've seen players from Mexico go abroad. I mean,
Tim Ream is still playing, so
Tim Ream's still playing. Memo Ochoa just made a 6-month
anything
move,
can happen.
So anything can happen, and that's 26 is unfortunately in the soccer game somehow in football has become an old age because we're starting to see more and more players that are starting to be really good at 19 or 18 or 20, and so there's the prime has kind of. At least for an outfield player, for the goalies, it's different. But it is weird how that's happened, because to us regular people, 26 is not old at all. I am 27, so it's definitely not old. But yeah, it's the age definitely plays a role in that. Yeah. And especially with the German sides. The German sides typically like the younger talent. The younger talent. I feel like, again, as I mentioned with the MLS being that for, that type of league, and the Liga MX being those types of leagues for the South American players to come and develop at a young age. I think it's similar for the Bundesliga for young Americans, young Mexicans to go there, young players from the MLS or to go to Bundesliga. We've seen that a lot. And, it just has become a thing. So that's maybe another reason why they backed out of it.
Yeah. On the other end, Tigres defeated Santos Laguna 3-0. It was a difficult result to swallow from my end, but we saw the return of Fernando Goriran. He was obviously with Santos Laguna last tournament. He made that move during this transfer season, and now he's over there. There was a little bit of controversy over his actions on the field. A lot of Santos Laguna's fans felt there was little respect on his end towards his former teammates, adopting the Tigres ways. So obviously that's left to other people's judgment. I think he just was trying to get the job done and secure that victory.
I'm no Tigres fan. I'm no Tigres fan because, as you know, the one game I've watched of them, I didn't really love the attitude that they carried. But at the same time, you're going into a new team against your former team. I think you still have to show a level of
respect.
Like, not even respect. I'm speaking more towards the Tigres side.
Oh, okay.
You have to show you're on their side. You can't.
I get that.
I think, especially in the first game of the season, the first game of the tournament, I think you have to. I mean, granted, there's a certain level that you should go to. You shouldn't. It doesn't need to be, but I think in some sense you need to show. Okay, I'm a Tigres player now. This is where I'm at. This is where my heart's at. So, but again, I also understand the other side of it, where teams are, you're upset, and I get that. I get that. I never understood. Like, listen, I get the whole not celebrating against your former team if you score a goal thing, but at the same time, like, it's like kind of like, what are we, like 4 years old? Like, he's on a different team now. He's not on your team. Like, that player should be able to celebrate any way they want to. I mean,
he's not on your team anymore.
Aside from kissing the new badge, I'll leave that out. But aside from that, he should be, or she for that matter, should be able to celebrate any way they want to.
Yeah.
But, it's all
and I mean, I saw what Santos Laguna supporters were complaining about, and I understood. It was a little irritating, a little annoying, but what can you do? I think the most stellar aspect of that game to come out was Guignac's goal celebration, where he hunched over and pretended to use a cane in reference to Miguel Herrera, obviously Tigres' former head coach, quoting
that the team was too old.
That the team was too old. Obviously, he couldn't win.
Love it.
Yeah, they failed to make the final last tournament. He just claimed the roster was too old and the team was too old. So what a great, I guess, piping hot tea start for Gignac to kick off with a goal and that old man celebration. Very interesting. But yeah, they got the 3 points against Santos Laguna. That was great. Cruz Azul, on the other hand, did not seal the 3 points. They just got one.
But that's okay because they didn't lose to the last place team from last tournament. So, or they didn't tie the last place team from last tournament.
I mean, you also drew against Tijuana. Like, I wouldn't get on your high horse.
I mean, I watched it. That atmosphere was hostile. I watched it. It was hostile. It was a tough game. Believe me.
It was a tough game. It was an interesting game.
It was an interesting game, but I will say,
your thoughts, first-time fan thoughts.
So for the first 75 minutes of it, I said I think I'm watching Everton because they had 3 shots and I think 1 on goal compared to Tijuana's like literal 14 with 7 on goal, and I was like, this is painful. Like this is absolutely painful. But then they did turn it up a little bit, thankfully, because it was like it was not good enough for the first 75 minutes of this game. They turned it up. They eventually get the goal, which was great. Obviously love seeing that. But not a great performance, I will say. Not a great performance overall. I was hoping for better, if we're being honest. I mean, in total, only 9 shots, 4 on goal. We talk about this thing with possession. This has been I think a common thread, not only among our podcast and talks, but among the world,
right?
Is having possession, but not doing anything with it, understanding that that's not good football. And they had 60% of possession, but they essentially didn't do anything with it. So that's a problem. But I will say they didn't get any red cards.
They didn't get any. But listen, I told you with Cruz Azul, certain parts were going to be fun, but you were going to suffer. And I don't feel like I've lied.
No,
I don't think I feel like I've lied. I think my statement was vindicated with that first game. You're going to have fun, but you're going to suffer.
I mean, I suffered right away because I became a Cruz Azul fan, and then one of their best players left, or is not on he officially left at this point, right? I mean, I know he wasn't in the team. Yeah, I know he wasn't in the team. Okay, he wasn't in the team this week, so I assumed he had left. But yes, I understand. I understand. I'm going to suffer. I understand that. I understand that. It's part of the thing. It's part of the thing. Part of the game. But I would have expected more. But again, if the comparisons with Everton are going to continue, they will play really well against the Club Americas and the Tigres and the Pachucas of the world. And but they'll like tie them, and then they'll lose a game to the last place team that they shouldn't lose, and they'll finish in 7th place. So we're right on track for that, which I'm very excited about. I know what I'm getting into.
You absolutely know what you're getting
I know what I'm getting into, but it still doesn't mean I cannot be disappointed. I can still be disappointed.
Of course.
I can still be disappointed. Listen, it's always a great win when Cruz Azul. It's always a great week when Cruz Azul tie and Club America don't win. It's always a great week.
All right.
So
same result. But you, in fact, were not the only Cruz Azul fan to be disappointed, and the 1-1 draw was not the biggest focal point of the weekend or this week.
Yes, again, I'm getting into this, so I'm trying to understand a lot of the storylines at the same time, but I also admittedly do not speak Spanish. So I don't know what's going on because it's hard for me to follow the Twitter accounts and the statements and this, that, and the other thing. So please explain to me what happened, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm on a high. Everything's great. We're going into the 2nd week and everything's,
not great.
Flowers and springtime and
butterflies.
No,
not quite. Julio Dominguez, nicknamed obviously Cata Dominguez, a defender in Cruz Azul.
Wait, I know exactly what you're talking about. Continue.
Then you will follow.
I did see this. I was going to comment on this, but I know exactly. Continue.
So he held a party for his son and his son's friends. And it was narco themed. Now in the state of Sinaloa, we know, the violence is going on, cartel related violence is going on, and it's been deadly. Obviously made a game postponed, but it's been a dire situation, and across the country, there's been a lot of fear. I know a couple of videos circled around Twitter, people in an airplane being scared, but overall, the tone of the situation is obviously not great. The country is suffering. It's just not great, and it's emotional to talk about, so we will skip through that part of it all. But he held a party, a narco-themed party, and posted pictures about it online, boasting about the situation. And I mean, it's never okay to do that in a regular setting, but to boast about it in the exact moment something is heavily going on it was just completely tone deaf. So, and he's not completely well received in the team anyway, just because footballistically, like, I mean, sports wise, like, he just hasn't lived up to expectations. So between the two things, there was just larger outcries between not only Cruz Azul fans, but just Liga MX and Mexicans in general. It was just completely bad taste. And the league issued a statement, and Cruz Azul issued a statement, and forced the player to also not only issue a statement, but record a video explaining the situation and apologizing. Now, they have said that it will be handled internally. A lot of people requested or kind of wanted him to be suspended or like go from the roster because he, again, doesn't contribute so much on the field.
Yeah.
So it's been a real mess. It's been a real mess for the team. The result obviously didn't help overshadow the situation.
Yeah.
And neither have the statements, in that they were just not enough. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah. So again, yes, I do know what you're talking about, because I did see something with him earlier in the week, and I meant to ping you guys in our Slack chat, and I completely forgot about it. But yeah, I mean, in a much more serious note, we try and keep it light on this podcast, but you do have to talk about serious things. And in a much more serious note, it's unacceptable, really. You can't be doing that with everything that's going on in the country, everything, it's very, as you mentioned, tone deaf to the situation.
Right.
And it's just unacceptable. You can't be doing stuff like that. People are suffering around the country because of this. And just because you're a professional athlete, it does not give you a right or a pass on any of this stuff.
Right.
So again, being very new to this league, I don't know how to handle something like this, but there should at least be a suspension involved, I think.
Yeah.
Because it would be a bad look on Cruz Azul's part if they did not have that.
I mean, he was in a part of the game day roster against Tijuana, which was
he was
kind of expected. Even if he had been, he wouldn't have played. But yeah, it's just a lot to unpack there. I'm sure more things will come out once Cruz Azul decides how that they will manage it internally.
And as a professional athlete, as someone on a team, you cannot, this is the type of distraction that you don't want on your team. This is the type of thing that, you should know better than. We talk about this all the time in sports, right? Guys causing distractions for their team right before the season starts. You just can't. I mean, never mind. You can't do that in general.
Right.
But
let alone
anything distraction wise should be, you should know better in that situation. So definitely a tough situation, and something that, should be handled, with, I think, the utmost and strictest possible, in the strictest possible way. Whatever that may be, a suspension, releasing him from the team. And that should have nothing to do with the quality of the player.
Right.
Whether it was their best player,
there were calls to release him from the team, but
whether it be their best player or their worst player, that's something that should be unacceptable no matter what.
Right.
So, that's, I guess, my take on that situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to navigate through it, especially because obviously no one saw it coming. But so that's the situation. Overall, that's our recap for week 1. I know we missed a lot of other teams, but our core. So, yeah.
Yes, those are the core. I mean, the others, what else happened across the league? Is there...
Chivas and Alexis Vega scored a goal, which was great.
Oh, yes. Chivas scored. Chivas won. So it is a good week.
They're
honestly,
not gonna do, like,
it's a good week when Chivas win and Club America don't win.
Oh, you're taking
Really
that
good.
stance. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you picked up on that quite quickly.
Very quickly, yes, very quickly. It's like the Everton and Liverpool. It's a great week when Everton win and Liverpool lose.
It
It's a
doesn't
great
happen
week
very
when
often, does
Chivas win.
it?
Well, recently it's been happening a lot more. So because you guys kind of stink too. So
But at least we're not. You know what? We're not in the relegation zone, so
I
I
will
just
take
tone it down a
every
bit.
single little bit of pleasure I can from the struggles of Liverpool while my team suffers tremendously in the English
Yeah,
Premier
we're
League.
not in relegation zone. So I mean, I can sleep well knowing
In all
that.
reality, though, if we're talking about things that we're gonna nix the we're gonna just skip by the relegation comment there. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
is
we're
that
just
what you
not
need
gonna
to accept that?
we're just gonna not that's not gonna happen. We're not gonna talk
Right.
about that. In all
Right.
reality, Chivas win over Monterrey, I feel like is a pretty solid win
It is. It
for
is a
them
pretty
as well.
solid win, and I'll give that to them. I was glad to see Alexis Vega score. Obviously, we know I was disappointed not to see him earn a transfer after the World Cup, because once you're on that international stage, it really is the time to shine, and he didn't, and he actually
Yeah.
showed his susceptibility to fatigue and his lack of physicality. That was disappointing. So to come back and score, I think shut a lot of people up, which is great on his end. And I mean, if he can keep growing and deliver on a Mexican national team level, like that's great. I'm not going to support on a Chivas level just because I just can't do that. But I'll accept it. I'll accept the goal. I think that was great. And yeah, keep improving so you can move abroad, and I can support you.
I don't know. I feel like
That's
you
my
can
message
support
to
him, though.
Alexis Vega. He still does want a transfer, and he said it before. That's the dream to move to Europe. Is still very much alive. So we will see. He's still young. He'll still make it, and I'm sure he'll join the Mexican national team in the upcoming Nations League and Gold Cup call-ups, and that'll give him even more of a boost to scouts everywhere.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a good win though. I'll give it to them. Bless you.
Thank you. Had to sneeze.
That's a good mute button. But yeah, so overall, very exciting. Liga MX Jornada 2, Week 2 has kicked off. It started last night, but we'll get into the real action this weekend. It'll be very exciting.
Wait, it started last night?
Yeah, there was one game last night.
Who played last? Oh my god, I missed that.
I mean, it wasn't a great game.
That's right. Atlas and Mazatlan tonight, right?
Oh, tonight, yes.
Yes. So that'll be fun. I mean, it was fun in Copa por Mexico, so hopefully it's fun tonight. Neither of these teams played. Both these teams had their games postponed last week, so that will be
and then you'll have San Luis, Guadalajara, and then Puebla, Querétaro tomorrow. And then obviously we get into Saturday's action. Toluca, Club América, Tigres, Pachuca, Santos Lagunas, Pumas, Juárez, Club Tijuana, León, Necaxa.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, got a good lineup of games this week. I feel like. I mean,
Saturday night is going to be a good one.
Once you get into Saturday, you get, Cruz Azul, Monterrey is going to be fun. Toluca, Club America is certainly going to be fun as well. And I know Santos Laguna, doesn't have the team that they've had in the past, but that game against Pumas will probably be pretty decent.
And the Club America Toluca one is particularly interesting, obviously, because we know Toluca made it quite far to the finals last tournament. It was disappointing for them, I guess, to lose against Pachuca, but Pachuca was very, very strong overall. But it was somewhat equal. So it'll be a difficult game for Club America coming off of a draw against Querétaro. So we shall see.
For sure. And then Tigres Pachuca on Sunday, which we got a really, really good week of football.
Yeah, really good week.
Very, very good week.
Coming.
A lot going on. Obviously, I will be watching the Cruz Azul match, but I'll also, it's going to be phenomenal. We're going to win 3-0. I already know it. But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be watching. I'll definitely try and watch a lot of the Club America game, and then, I mean, it's just that there's a lot of good stuff on this weekend, so I'm excited for that. I mean, obviously, elsewhere I don't want to watch sports at all, so This will be a lot of fun. It'll be a nice distraction from everything going on in my sports teams, whether they be American-based or British-based around the world.
All suck. They're all not great. So before we wrap up, next week on Tuesday, we will obviously be covering Liga MX Jornada 2, but we will also be releasing a lot of Media Day content, whether that be interviews with Chicharito, Christian Benteke, Julian Araujo, and Hector Herrera. We have a lot coming. So make sure to stay tuned. Subscribe on our YouTube. We'll be releasing those first looks there. And then also again on Twitter. So stay tuned, follow us, subscribe, all the works. And thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.